So we're talking about how weight loss is unsustainable. I need a drink of water. I should have done that before I pressed record, but anyway. A lot of our weight science is based on very outdated theories. And the most outdated theory of all is basically to do with this energy imbalance thing. You know, we genuinely still believe, which is hilarious, that if there is an imbalance between the energy that we receive from the food that we eat and the energy that our bodies use to stay alive and do physical activities, if there's an imbalance, then we'll gain weight or lose weight, depending on which way the imbalance is. People still genuinely believe that, which is hilarious. It's the the whole first law of thermodynamics that they love to shout at you. No, because the body is way more complex than that, as I alluded to in the previous video. And so, actually, if you look at, the National Institute of Health, the American Dietetic Association, National Health Service, look at all the big ones. They'll all say all their advice is based on the idea that if you reduce your energy intake by about 2 megajoules per day, you will slowly and steadily reduce your weight by about 0.5 kilograms per week. And if some of you are like, what's a megajoule and what's a kilogram? You'll have to Google it. Okay? But that is the idea. And if you and to translate that, 3,500 calories per pound. That's what it translates into. 3,500 calories per pound. If you just reduce that, you'll drop a pound. 3,500 calories less a week, you'll drop a pound. That is the evidence base for almost all of our recommendations, which is hilarious because that is disproven. That's a disproven fact. I mean, there's no question that this is wrong. The body adapts to changes in weight, and diets simply don't work. Restrictive diets simply don't work. 3,500 calories does not equal a pound. It might on week 1, but it definitely doesn't by week 20. So here are some fun facts that I would like to share with all of you. Number 1, did you know that in order to lose 1 kilogram of body fat, the energy deficit, I should say, the energy deficit, in other words, calories out minus calories in. No, calories in minus calories out. Okay, I'm getting myself confused here. The energy deficit, in other words, you need to be consuming fewer calories than you use. The energy deficit that you require to lose a kilogram of body fat is 5 times the energy deficit that you require to lose a kilogram of lean mass. So we therefore, and what's really interesting actually, more than that, is that when it comes to something like muscle, it's very easy to lose, but it's quite hard to maintain, which is why people who are going after that elusive 6-pack have to do a lot of hard work to have that muscle definition. It's very hard to maintain. You stop exercising for just a little while and you'll lose it. Whereas maintaining fat is not hard at all. Very easy to do. Just ask me. I've done it for a long time now. So if you want to know how to get a fat belly, I'm your guy. 5 times the amount, which is why we will always lose lean mass in preference to fat. So when you reduce the amount of calories that you consume, you're not losing fat, you're losing lean mass until the body gets to a point where it's like critical. If we lose any more lean mass, we will die. And that's when it starts converting fat into energy. It takes that long. Second fact I want to share with you. Doesn't matter what kind of diet you go on, the results are the same. A lot of people are like, oh no, this is not a diet, it's a lifestyle. And they'll say, I don't know, what will they say? Well, you're not cutting calories. You're like, this isn't a diet. You're not cutting calories. You can eat whatever you want, but you have to follow the following food rules. And then there are loads of them. And use our supplements as well. So this is a real kind of myth that if you just cut certain things out, it's okay. But cutting calories is bad. We don't do that anymore. We do. No, it's exactly the same, because your body will adjust. If you cut out carbs, for example, your body will adjust. Your body's very smart. You can't be tricked. All of these people who think that you can trick the body. No, you can't. The body's way too smart for that. So you cut out carbs, it will adjust. And so our body was designed for this. For example, there would have been periods of time when we didn't have access to that much protein, because protein tends to be found in general in meat, and which would have been one of our primary sources of protein, and fish, etc. And if we didn't have access to that, and we were eating primarily carbohydrates, which is still for some people around the world their primary source of energy, and they're not getting enough protein, the body copes. And it copes the other way around too. Too much protein, not enough carbohydrate. The body's like, it's all right, we've got this. By the way, the only source of energy for parts of your body, including your red blood cells and your brain, is sugar, glucose, carbohydrates. Not ketones, glucose, and glucose only. So all these people who are like, ketosis is great, low carbs, no carbs. You literally will die without carbs. Your brain and your red blood cells need glucose, not ketones. FYI. Another fun fact, the more you weigh, the higher your resting metabolic rate. Did you know that? So the heavier you are, the higher your resting metabolic rate, which is why the heavier you are, the easier it is to lose weight to begin with. And you will know this if you've ever done Weight Watchers or Slimming World or any of the other things, and you're in a group, the heaviest person in the room is going to be the first one to win the prize, like most amount of weight, like lost 15 pounds or whatever, like they're going to win the prize. Because the heavier you are, the higher your resting metabolic rate, and therefore the easier it is to lose weight once you start starving yourself. But it doesn't last. By the end of your diet, your resting energy expenditure will have dropped more significantly than a smaller person. So it's the more extremes you go to, actually, the more damaging it is to your body. It's harder, therefore, to maintain weight loss, and then you restore your weight quicker. So I often talk about yo-yo dieting or weight cycling. The heavier you are, the more you drop to begin with. And then it slows down. The more you regain. And the more you drop, the more you regain. So your weight keeps going up and up. And the heavier you are, the worse it gets. And it's terrible, because the weight loss advice is always like, the bigger you are, the more it's like, you have to lose weight. You must go on a diet. You must restrict. You must take this medication. You must have weight loss surgery because you're so fat. But actually, I'm trying to think of a good analogy here. The higher you have to fall, the more it's going to hurt. Is that a good analogy? Yeah. Like, you have more to lose the bigger you are. So pay attention to this, please. There's this really interesting study that I will try and link to in the video. It basically asks, how strongly does appetite counter weight loss? I love this study. So a group of researchers used a proven mathematical method to track changes in energy intake over a year. And what was really good about this study is this group of people that they were tracking, they weren't doing diet or exercise or anything. So there was no room for bias. They were all placed on a medication called canagliflozin, which basically makes you wee out sugar, pee sugar. And as a result, you can have an energy deficit. And so, but it's an energy deficit that is a sort of secondary result of a medication, nothing to do with diet or exercise. So there's no kind of confounding factors here. No, some people dieting more than others, some people exercising more than others, not relevant. They're all on the same dose of medication. So that's why I really like the study. And so it led to weight loss, unsurprisingly, being on this medication. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't attempted. It was just something that happened. But the participants had no idea they had an energy deficit. They were just taking this medication. And the researchers simply calculated the relationship between body weight changes and energy intake. Let's done it again. Oh, is it working? Please be working. And what they found is that let's have a look here. For every kilogram of weight lost, appetite went up by 100 extra calories. For every kilogram of weight lost, appetite went up by 100 calories. Like I said, your body is very smart. If it is losing weight unintentionally, it will increase your appetite. It will simply increase it. Unbeknownst to you, these people did not know they were on a medication. No one told them you're just going to get hungry and you're going to eat more. Which, by the way, as I'm reading this, I am actually on a similar medication, and it makes so much sense because I did lose a little bit of weight and I did get hungrier. So, folks, this idea that it's all down to willpower. If you have willpower, then you will be able to succeed that diet and you'll be able to maintain that weight loss. I hate that. I just hate this idea. Willpower is basically about self-control, right? It's about the ability to regulate our thoughts and our emotions and our behaviors, and resisting impulses. And it's, that anything that might interfere with our long-term objectives, in this case, losing weight. But these impulses that we're talking about, they're essential for living. It's like telling somebody to take a deep breath in and hold it. They can. And the more they can, people can hold a breath for a very long period of time. And actually, the more you practice, the better you get at it. But there is a point in time when your body will just be like, no, breathe. You need more oxygen, right? It's not an impulse. I mean, it is an impulse, but it's one that is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. It is one that is basically controlled subconsciously, and so is appetite. Appetite is controlled subconsciously. Yes, you have some measure of control over it. In other words, you can hold your breath and you can also decide, I'm not eating because I can't eat today, or for whatever reason, I'm choosing not to eat. I'm fasting for religious purposes, whatever. So you have some control over it, but not indefinitely. It's like passing urine. Like, if you suddenly need to go to the toilet, you don't struggle with urge incontinence because sometimes you don't have any control over it. But assuming you don't have an overactive bladder and you need to go to the toilet and you look around, you're like, well, there are no toilets here, so I'm going to have to wait for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour or whatever. You usually can hold it, right? You can hold it in. We learned to do that when we were really young. But up until a point, if I kept you restrained in a room and I held you prisoner, eventually you would just wet yourself. There will come a point where the bladder's like, I'm done, I'm out. We're going. We can't control it anymore. These impulses are our body's natural functions. So to imply that we can somehow control them is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Our body knows that we're losing weight. Our body tells us to go out and eat. And to begin with, we're like, okay, I'm not going to do it. But it's eventually we're going to want to do it. And of course, when we do, like our body's like, eat as much as you can, binge, as it were, because we don't know when we're going to get our next meal. No matter how much quote unquote willpower you have, eventually the impulses will overwhelm you. And the other thing is, you get this, if you're doing something and you're reaping the benefits, then you're more inclined to do it, right? I don't know. I don't want to use going to the gym. I don't think that's a particularly helpful analogy. What analogy do I want to use here? Learning a language. Duolingo banks on this. Every time you get a question right and it gets a ding, you get that noise, that notification sound, that's like a pleasure center, like reward in our brains, a reward. Oh yeah, we're getting better. We're getting better at learning a language. So as we improve, we want to keep going. When we stop improving, when we hit that kind of like, well, actually, I don't think I'm any better than I was. When I learned the first few words of this language on Duolingo, I was loving it. All of a sudden, I was like, I speak Spanish. And then I realized, actually, Spanish is it's a language, and there are, infinite, not infinite, but large words, vocabulary that I need to learn. And then there's the grammar and the this and the that. And actually, it's a lot harder than I thought it was. For the vast majority of us, we give up, and Duolingo has to keep harassing us. But for some people who really are into it, the more you learn the language, the better you get, the more inspired you are to keep going. And you just keep going indefinitely because you're like, yes, I want to do this. I love this. I want to do this. And I guess it's the same if you're learning a sport or a musical instrument or anything like that. When you're dieting, to begin with, you're losing a lot of weight and then it slows down. So it's like the opposite effect. Imagine if you were learning a language and for every week that passed, you got worse at that language. You're learning an instrument and you got worse and worse every week. You're learning a sport and you were less successful every week. You'd give up. Anyone would. Who wouldn't, right? The myth of willpower when it comes to dieting. Nonsense. I think there might still be, there's definitely loads more to say. I can't believe it. I thought it would be one video. It's not one video. So join me for the next one.